Everybody, welcome to the Political Vigilante live stream. It is Thursday, June 18th. I'm drinking a vegan smoothie and a superhero shirt that's probably one size too small, just the way they like it. And man, this vegan smoothie tastes fantastic. So I am joined by my good friend of the show, Lee Camp from the show Redacted Tonight on RT. Lee, how you doing today?
I'm good. I was going to ask you where you get the child size shirts. Where do you find those?
Well, there's a store called Vegan Guns, and that's my favorite store. And the largest size they have is a young adult medium. So that's usually what I go with, because I emotionally am not mature enough to wear a properly fitting shirt.
I mean, no comedian is really.
No
comedian. Our emotional maturity stopped at 6 when poop jokes were still funny.
Well, that's when I see comics too well dressed. I'm always like, wait a minute, that's not. Who are you trying to fool here?
Everyone.
Everyone. What's everybody in the live chat? Cat B, Jenna, hello everybody. David, welcome to the show. Hit the like button, put this out on your social media. So, Lee, I saw you just released an article or a column based on Consortium News, and I wanted to talk about it because you're being kind of mean towards billionaires, Lee, and I just don't think it's nice. I mean, do you know how hard it is to make all that money and then not have to pay taxes on top of it? I mean,
I was a little, when I wrote it, I was a little worried that you'd be offended as a billionaire. You would take me to task for this, but yeah.
I mean, look, man, polo horses don't feed themselves, buddy. And I just if you're expecting me to, first of all, everyone crawled up Betsy DeVos's for having 10 yachts. I mean, honestly, are you really going to look me in the eye and tell me you're going to take the same yacht to Bermuda that you're going to take to the south of France? I mean, are you really going to look me in the eye and tell me that, Lee?
Look, these are all good points. Once you use a yacht, it is soiled, and you therefore need to move on to the next yacht, especially in the time of Corona. I mean, one yacht, one use, single-use yacht, let's be honest.
Of course. How am I supposed to socially distance on the same yacht?
Yeah. No, it's very true.
It's like...
and now you have to have the cooking staff in a separate yacht so that they're not near you. So, yeah.
It's bad enough you have to disinfect them or just kill them or what. I don't know what happens to them, but get rid of them and get new staff. It's bad enough I have to do that. And then,
the single-use staff is really rough on the, it doesn't.
On the billionaire ruling class. Your column in Consortium, you really, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of the fact that the 1%, Wall Street, has been making a killing, literally, while people are dying during coronavirus. I just got my unemployment June 5th. I have friends of mine who still have not gotten it. There was another 1 million or so people that just applied just in the state of California. So go into detail about what you've actually uncovered that a lot of people probably aren't aware of what's been happening with the ruling class in the last 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get to what Wall Street has gotten, there was a study done recently, Alan McLeod covered it in Mint Press, but it was also covered elsewhere, about the amount that just billionaires, individuals, private citizens billionaire private citizens have amassed during this pandemic. And it's about $370 billion has been added to the already egregious wealth of billionaires. So it's like, as most people in this country are struggling more than ever, we have the record number of, it's over 40 million now, I believe, who have applied for unemployment. As people are suffering like never before, it has been just a real boon time for billionaires. And, as most people already know, even before the pandemic, the level of wealth inequality was just fucking mind-blowing. I mean, 3 people had the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of the country, 160 million people, something like that. it's three dudes had that amount of wealth. And so it really is like, as they continue to run away with more and more, they got a massive tax cut under Donald Trump. Even before Donald Trump, there was, they estimate something like $32 trillion are kept in tax havens that aren't being paid. They're not paying any taxes on. So while all of that is going on, people are struggling like never before. So the column just tries to put together all of those facts and also point out something that Citibank has known for a while now, but that most people do not, which is that we now live in a plutonomy. Now, there's a plutocracy, which is ruled by the wealthy, which we definitely have that. But plutonomy is a kind of a different idea that most people don't talk much about, which is that the main drivers of the economy and the beneficiaries of the economy are the rich. So as long as you can keep that top 10% of the wealthiest in America happy, as long as they're continuing to buy their shit and continuing to do what they do, then you don't actually have to worry about your average citizens, about average people. They're no longer, and this wasn't always the case back in even up to the 80s. The actual driver of the economy was all the individuals that are spending and consuming on a daily basis. But now we're in a time where the wealth is so egregiously weighted at the top that really we now have a plutonomy. It's just an economy where the motivation and the benefit is all the wealthy of the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the thing that's so staggering was all of the statistics before this pandemic. I mean, the 60% of America that couldn't afford a $500 to $1,000 emergency. There was a study in February that there was over like 1 million or so car loans that were 90 days past due in February. Right. Not to mention, that people were paying over half of their salary for rent. Rent should be 20 to 25% of what you make in a month, and now it's becoming 50 to 60% of what you make in a month. And if it's a big city,
you mentioned the automobiles. The auto debt bubble was apparently, even before the pandemic, was apparently about the same size as the mortgage bubble was, the mortgage debt bubble before the 2008 crash. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's all these bubbles. There's the carbon bubble. I mean, because what's happening is investors this was done in 2015. The governor of the Bank of England gave a speech saying, we got to slowly deflate the carbon bubble because investors are going to start to see that the long-term feasibility in fossil fuel investment isn't going to be plausible. Yep. And rather than like, oh, let's transition to green, they just doubled down. That's why all these pipelines are saying to investors, oh, no, oil's here to stay, here to stay, here to stay. And that bubble was getting bigger and bigger in 2015, 2016, 2017, that was big. So we had all these bubbles lining up right before this pandemic that has shut down the global economy.
Right, and so they gave this massive bailout to try and prop it all up. I mean, it truly is just a collapsing, building that they've got duct taped and chewing gum is holding it together, and they just keep adding more, hoping they can keep it up. But yeah, so we talked about the billionaires, how much they've amassed, and then I'm sure you've covered it, but this bailout is really, even though people talk about billions, 500 billion or something, really, when you count the leveraging that the Fed is able to use, that's been given to the big banks and Wall Street, it's $4.25 trillion that has just been thrown at Wall Street. David Dayen called it a money cannon that has just been fired at Wall Street. And what do they do with that? Well, they generally do not give it to the workers. They generally, save it or amass it and hide it in their own goddamn vaults. So.
Well, yeah, that's the thing that's so offensive. It's like twofold. So not only do you have this $4.25 trillion that was given to Wall Street in the aptly named by Dave Dayen cannon, money cannon, you've then got companies like Amazon and Walmart who have just seen significant profits because their business benefited during a lockdown, a shutdown. And, and what are they giving their employees union wages and hazard pay? And no No, they're not. Maybe a little bonus here and there. I mean, Amazon fired Chris Smalls for starting organizing a strike. I mean,
yeah, rather than give Amazon workers masks, I think they just told them to use the diapers they were already wearing to avoid bathroom breaks. You go back and forth between
that's
crotch and the face.
Yeah, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps or your diaper straps and get back to work. And now we're seeing this. I mean, and we're seeing how all these financial things that were already in place are fueling so much of the unrest. First, there was before the George Floyd was murdered and those protests, there was the largely right-wing Second Amendment crowd that in a handful of cities said open the country back up. And while I don't like many of them are white nationalists and openly racist, and of course the cops just give, you can walk on the Capitol steps with an automatic weapon, no problem, but if you peacefully protest and you're unarmed, we're going to shoot you with a rubber bullet.
Right.
So there was that, but I mean, even that crowd wanted to get back to work, and if you could explain to them that it's the 1% that's screwing them over, it's not this party or that party or immigrants, and that's who's screwing them over. I mean, would those protests have happened? Would the George Floyd ones have been the way they would? Maybe just because police in this country are psychopaths, but like, imagine if we treated our citizens like all these other industrialized. What if we get, you get free healthcare now, we're going to pay your rent for 4 months, student debt forgiveness, you're going to get $3,000 a month UBI. Like,
right.
all of those things just exacerbated everything, I think.
Right. Like, they could have done this bailout differently and made sure people weren't laid off, made sure people didn't end up unemployed, made sure people didn't lose their health care that they had under their employer. You look at Denmark, they had a bailout, but their bailout was these corporations get money in order to not fire people. So, basically the Denmark government said, we will fund a certain percentage of the employees that you were going to fire, or that so that you can make it through this, so that the bailout went directly to the workers rather than just to the corporate heads. And so there are different ways to do this situation, to deal with this crisis. And we, of course, dealt with it the worst possible greed-based way, which is to give all the money to the ruling elite, the heads of corporations, and say, oh yeah, take care of things, would you? Which, they are in that position because they are sociopaths. And actually, I conclude my article in Consortium News, which anybody can read if they go over there, or at leecamp.com. I conclude it by talking about a study that came out a few years back, showing that the wealthy, the higher class individuals are far more likely to behave unethically. I know this sounds a little bit like common sense, but they're more likely to break traffic laws. They're more likely to cheat in contests. And it's because that's how you become egregiously wealthy. You start as a sociopath. That's why, the boardrooms of these companies that rule over America, there's a certain type of person that ends up in that boardroom, and it is the one that's willing to step on other people's throats to get there. So, you're absolutely right that there's a different way to deal with this. We could have given the bailout to the people rather than the $1,200 breadcrumbs that they did send out. And of course we didn't, because we are now a plutocracy as well, or a kleptocracy ruled by thieves, and they give the money to themselves.
Yeah, and also too, like, so much was made of the looting, and I was like, it was like I was blown away. First of all, it happened blocks from me. It happened in my town, and I'm not happy it happened.
Where were you?
Well, I was at the peaceful protest, but I got to tell you, man, if I didn't have, at that point, that was May 31st, I hadn't gotten my unemployment. I had only gotten $1,200. I had gotten like a couple of grand from the SBA. And if I didn't have a YouTube show that was making some money and was just a road comic, I don't know, Lee, I might have gone into the grocery store that was looted near me and gotten some food because I was goddamn hungry.
I knew you were a criminal.
Well, I'm a criminal because I'm a comedian. We're all inherently criminals. It's like a pirate ship. But, I'm not happy looting happened. and I'm sorry small businesses got hurt, but people who don't understand that the looting was like part of the protest of like people are hungry. They've been, not just from the pandemic, but from all the stuff we've been talking about that's been happening in this country. As Chris Hedges calls it, there's been a 4 decades long corporate coup of this country. And you know, if everybody was given health care, free college, and all this other stuff that they get in all these other countries, rather than spend trillions of dollars on war, there wouldn't be this like, oh, fuck the system. I'm gonna steal stuff, or I need to steal these shoes because I can sell them on the street. I mean, I would have, you know, and
well, and even if you want to say that is wrong for that person to steal something out of a store, even if you wanted to have that debate, that is a nothing fraction of what's been looted, as we've just discussed, of the $4.25 trillion, of the 370 billion that has been amassed just since the pandemic started by billionaires. So that's, if you really are furious at theft and looting, then point your anger towards them, all right? Because that's the real looting. Stealing the fucking zebra cakes out of the 7-Eleven is not really going to register on the full scale once you look at it all.
Yeah, think about the looting that's been going on. Think about the 6 million homes that got looted in the last housing crisis. Think of all the small businesses that are going to get looted because this SBA, these PPP loans and all this stuff, there's all these fine prints in them that say, oh, we can take up your business. That all these businesses, some of them aren't going to survive the next 6 to 12 months because I don't know how we're going to come back from this economy. I mean, numbers just here in LA and Orange and Ventura County, they opened up really soon and their COVID numbers have spiked. So I don't know, and certain sectors traveling, I mean, you and I know we travel for a living. When a comic or a salesman or whatever goes on the road, I calculated it's in the neighborhood of 60 to 70 jobs are impacted, from the hotel to the rental car to the airport to the restaurants to all that, and all that sector's been wiped out. So like that looting, people are so, they act like, first of all, they act like looting is worse than executing a man in a street. And then they act like the looting of a store is somehow worse, but it's like this country's been getting looted by Wall Street for decades, man.
It really is a form of propaganda that we're told, and you know, I remember growing up and you believe this, oh my God, during a hurricane, can you believe those people are stealing food? You know, we're told this form of propaganda most of our lives, but really the largest theft that goes on is the way workers' lives are stolen, and they're hardly paid anything. You know, if the minimum wage from the 1960s had kept up with income distribution and buying power, it'd be $21 right now federally, and instead it's still $7 or whatever. So it's like, that is a form of looting. That is big business looting the lives of your average American, stealing the worth of your average American citizen. So, you know, don't give us this horse shit about, you know, be a true patriot and fire guns at people stealing food so they can get through a tough time. It's like, remember when the American sniper, whatever his name was, bragged, it turned out to be a lie, but bragged that he was on the Superdome during Katrina shooting looters. And that was the true American hero. We were supposed to celebrate and high five the idea that this guy was killing people who were stealing food during a hurricane. And what a wonderful American hero.
Well, just recently the local media here was this guy fought off looters, and Mayor Garcetti, he's a big liberal Democrat, he was like, you know, it's great to see citizens protecting stores. And what are you talking about? 54% of the operating budget of the city of Los Angeles goes to LAPD. So how much theft have you taken from social services, from public schools, from housing, just affordable housing for starters, not to mention housing for the homeless? Like, how much have you stolen? And there's one in Los Angeles, there's one big fancy luxury apartment or condo high rise almost every half mile, every couple of blocks, and they're not even full. They're like literally $4,000 and $5,000 one bedrooms by tent cities. So
yeah, I remember when I was out in LA last time, I read a cover of the newspaper was about like a homeless kind of city. I mean, we're talking
Mm-hmm.
whatever, few dozen people, but not tons of people, but like few dozen people that had developed this basically city in the woods outside of a mansion in Beverly Hills. Like they found a little square footage of wooded area, and they were like living outside this mansion.
It's insane. So, so Lee, tell us where people can read up on this article or find you or follow you or whatever. I know you're not on the road. None of us are on the road, but where else people can follow what you're doing?
Yeah, Consortium News is where you can grab it. Also, I have a new book out that has a lot of columns very similar to this one about the theft that's gone on in our country before this pandemic even began. It's called Bullet Points and Punchlines. It's at leecamp.com. Leecamp.com is fine to go there. And yeah, there's another article in that book that I just reposted, another chapter about 3 studies. I mean, I highlight 3 studies. There's 100 of them you could point to, but I highlight 3 studies that prove how real systemic racism is. I feel like right now is an important time to have that discussion. And you look at 3 studies about the funding gap of white schools versus minority schools. It's in the billions of dollars. You look at another study that shows you're 50% less likely to get the first job interview at a job, to even try and get that job. You're 50% less likely if you just have a black sounding name.
Wow.
If you just, so let that be a lesson, black folks out there. Name your kid Whitey McWhiteface, and then he'll get the interview for the job. It's truly insane. But yeah, it just takes a couple of studies to realize that how real systemic racism is.
Well, yeah, and it's true, and it's important too. I think one of the things I've been trying to do on this show is to own, like, look, I'm a middle class white guy. I have a lot of white privilege. Just being born, I don't have the privilege of the 1%, but I have the privilege of going to decent public schools. I have the privilege of my college educated parents saying we can afford to send you to college. We can't afford a private school, but we can send you to a state school. We can send you to a state university. Of course, I was lucky when I went to college, it was $8,000 a year. So 32 grand got me a 4-year degree. Now it's 30 to 40 grand or more a year. So
privileged to wear a comic book t-shirt and not get beat up. I mean, that alone.
Yes, I'm privileged to wear a shirt that's too small for me because I have the privilege of not wanting to wear a correctly fitting t-shirt. And so it's important to point all that out in those studies, and just study after study after study. And it's really critical that, like, white people really hear this and acknowledge all the places where we have privilege so that we can go, oh, this ain't right, and what we can take steps forward to do. Because I notice a lot of white people are uncomfortable talking about race. I'm not. I moved from Madison, Wisconsin to Chicago, and my high school, my junior high was 60% black. My high school was 40% black. So we were talking about it all the time with guys on my team and everything. And so white people have to get over that, like, and just talk about it and say, yeah, I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't realize that. I had privilege here and there and there. So everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.